So guys, here you can see the application that we're gonna build by the end of this tutorial. So as you can see, like initially the application will look like this. We're gonna simply display a beautiful background image with the clock and the date at the top. We're gonna work with some icons to display them, for example, the lock icon, and here at the bottom, the flash and the camera icon. I'm gonna open the guide that you should receive on your email, because here you'll find like all these like step-by-step instructions on how to follow along. Also, it has like a lot of code snippets to make your life easier. Alright, so here we have it. So for the user interface, let's start from the beginning and let's start with the task UI1. And here we need to initialize the project. So to initialize an Expo project, we simply need to use a command npx create Expo application. Nowadays, you don't have to install Expo CLI globally. You only need npm and npx, and if you have them, you are ready to get started and building applications with Expo. So I'm gonna open a terminal. By the way, this application will work both on Windows and on a Mac OS. I mean, to develop it on Windows and a Mac OS, and it will work both on an iOS device and on an Android device. I'm gonna go in my projects, and here let's go ahead and run npx create Expo app, and the name will be iOS lock screen. Let's press enter, and now npx will check if you already have this installed globally. If not, it will ask you to confirm to install it, so press yes, and after that Expo will initialize our project. After we see that your project is ready, all we have to do is to open this project with Visual Studio Code or any other editor of your choice. So let's go ahead and do code iOS lock screen, and this will open the newly created project in VS Code. Now I will not need any more this terminal because I will use the terminal that is integrated in Visual Studio Code. So let me set up everything. And now let's go ahead and run this project as it was generated by Expo. For that, open a terminal by selecting terminal in the top bar and then new terminal. And here, let's go ahead and run npm start. This will start our development server. And after that, yes, let's do yes. So this started for us the Metro bundler, and it displayed the QR code. This QR code, if you don't have an emulator on your machine, then the easiest way to test and debug Expo applications without having to go through the installation guides is to download on your phone the application called Expo Go from market. It is available for both Android and iOS, and after you install it on your device, then you can scan this QR code and it will run in your physical device, in your hand. But in order for you to see what I'm doing here, I will go ahead and run it on this emulator. So I'm gonna press I here. By the way, if you remember previously, Expo had like a very nice web UI user interface for the development server, but it was removed. So nowadays, the only way to interact with Expo is through the CLI command from here. So as you can see, there is all the commands that you can run, and also you can press question mark to see actually all of them. So now we see on the right the application running on our emulator or on your device, and it says to open up app.js and start working on the application. So app.js, we can find it here in our root directory, and this is the entry point of our application. So if we're gonna change the text here to hello world, then this text will automatically, without even saving this, it automatically updates on the device. So that means that everything, our setup is correct, and we are ready to move to the next step. So here you can see all the, in the guide that you received on the email, you should see all of these steps. And also I included like a couple of tips and tricks and some information about debugging. So if you're interested, go ahead and follow this guide to learn more about this. So back to our task list, let's go to the second one, UI import the assets. To import the assets, go ahead and download this asset bundle from here. And this is going to be the files that I told you that we need. So unzip this directory, and from here, open it up, and you will receive the PDF presentation if you're interested in that, and also a folder called assets. So drag this folder in our root directory, so somewhere below like the package.json, drop it here, and then let's press on the copy folder, and then replace. And this will replace the asset bundle that was already in our application. And I prepared for you like images for the applications that will be displayed in the notifications. I also have prepared the wallpaper and some dummy data here with all the notifications that we will use in the application to display. All right, so our assets are in place. Let's go ahead to our third task. The third task is the image background. So our goal is to render an image background, and the image, as I told you, is this wallpaper from our assets images wallpaper. So in our app.js, let's go ahead and import a couple of components. Here you will see the code examples if you open it like this, but I'm gonna do it right away here. So what do we need is, first of all, we need a component from React Native, which is gonna be the image background. This image background is very similar to an image component, but it allows us to put children content inside the image background, and that is going to be displayed on top of the image. And this way the image serves as a background. Now let's import the actual image, and the image I called it wallpaper. So let's do import wallpaper from this directory, then assets, then images, then wallpaper.web. I think. Now, I think we're gonna replace the top container, this view, with our image background. So let's replace view with image background. Make sure that the closing tag is also now image background. And let's go ahead and give it the wallpaper source. So source will be wallpaper. And just like that, we see the image in the background, and the text that is inside our image background is displayed nicely on top of it. Here, the way I display the image background was using absolute fill position in order to be able to take the whole screen. But I think the way I did it right now is also very nice. Now we can easily clear like the background color of our container, because we don't have a background color there. We don't need it. Alright, so that's it with image background. Let's go ahead to our next task. Back to our task list. After rendering the image background, let's go ahead and start rendering the date and time UI. The date and time, very convenient, because I don't need screenshots. I can just show you how it actually looks here. This is iOS 15 in fact, so it's a bit different from the end result. But the idea is that we have the time displayed at the top of our screen. We will have the date and also the lock icon. So let me see the application and let's go there. Okay, so where we have this text, hello world, this is where we will write the time. So for example, I don't know, 15:26. Then we will duplicate this text to have another one, but this time we need it above the time. And this time will be, I think, for example, Friday, 30th September. All right. And we also need the lock icon that displays like if the screen is locked or not. For that, we're gonna use some icons that are already provided by Expo. So the icon name is going to be Icons that we import from Expo vector icons. So above our text, let's render our icon. So Icons, the name is going to be, I'm going to check in the here, iOS lock closed, iOS lock closed. Let's close this tag just to see the icon. Let's give it a size, because it needs the size like 20, and a color white will work. So refresh. Yes, it works. And we see the icon there. Perfect. Now, let's put them into a container in order to be able to properly style and keep them close together, but at the same time, like give them some space between them. So let's go ahead and do that into a view, and we have to close this view after the time. Let's save. Now it's good. And the next step is going to be to actually style this header, the header of our page. So we will start by giving the styles to our components. For example, this view will have the style, styles.header. The text here will have style, styles.date, and this one will have style, styles.time. Now, in our styles object here, let's go ahead and start defining the header style, which is going to be an object, the date style, and the time style. Alright, so starting with the time, I think we can right away go ahead and increase the font size. So font size 82. For the font weight, let's give it 500, I think, or even more, like 600 or something. No, for font weight is actually 700 or bold, easier. Like this. That's how it looks on iOS 16 nowadays. I mean, you can adjust and change the styles. And for the color is going to be like kind of a white, but it has a tint of blue. So for that reason, let me go ahead and take it from here. This is the color that I'm interested in, and let's paste it here. All right, that looks much better already. So with the time we're done, let's do the same with our date. For example, the date will have the same color. It will have a font size of probably 20, yes. Then it will have a font weight. We can make it bold, but I think it will look better if this one is not that actually bold. And what else? And that's it probably. We want to put all the items in the center because as we can see, the date starts from the beginning. It doesn't look very good. For that, for our parent component header here, we're gonna say that we want to justify content center. And actually that's not justify content, but align items. It's always like trying one or another. All right, so that's good. Now I want to give some more spacing between the lock icon and the date. So for that reason, for the date, I'm gonna say that it has a margin top of 20, and this will push the icon more to the top. All right. With that being said, like we're almost ready with everything, only the position is not right. The position should be on the top. Let's first of all think why it's in the middle, because this header is inside our styles container. So the styles container, as we can see, has align item center and justify content also center. So let's go ahead and remove justify content center because this is what makes it centered in the middle. So if I remove it, now our lock is on the top, but the problem right now is that we do not see the lock icon as it is behind the notch. There are a couple of ways to address this issue, but the way I'm gonna do it is a bit tricky. So I'm gonna simply say that our header has a static height. So for the height, we're gonna say 250, but it's still not visible. Why? If I do a background color red, we see that the header is actually quite long, but all the items inside it are still aligned to the top. So let's go ahead and beside align items center that centers them horizontally, let's also do justify content center to center them vertically as well in the center. And with that being said, now our header displays well without this background color, and it's actually the same as we have on iOS 16. Alright, so I think that's everything that I wanted to do here for our header. Yes, that was everything. You have the code snippets here if you didn't manage to follow along, or if you had some issues, you can check what are the differences and fix the issues that you have in some cases. So let's go back to our task list, and the next task for us will be UI 5. The UI 5 is about our footer. It's kind of the same here on iOS 15, but I don't know why it doesn't display the flashlight. Maybe because it's an simulator, so that's why it doesn't display the flashlight. But the way we're gonna do it, we're gonna display a flashlight in the left corner, a camera icon in the right corner, and the icons will have like this nice transparent background. So let's go ahead in our application, and after our header here we're gonna have a notification list, but after the notification list we're gonna have our footer. So let's go ahead and do start with a view that will contain our footer. For the style, I'm gonna do styles.footer right away. And as I said, we need two icons here. One is material community icons. So let's import material community icons at the top from vector icons, material community icons, and the other one is also from Ionicons. Okay, so let's render the first one. The first one is from material community icons and has a name of flashlight. For the size, we're gonna give it 24, and for the color, we're gonna simply give it white. Let's close this icon like this, and we see it here right in the middle. All right, let's go ahead and display the second one, and then we're gonna think about positioning and styles and so on. So the second one is from Ionicons, and the name is iOS camera. Again, the size, I'm gonna actually copy them because I'm too lazy. Size 24 and color white. Save. All right, now we see the camera there as well. The idea is that these icons should have like a background, a gray background, as you can see here. So for that reason, what we're gonna do is we're gonna put them into a view, each of them. So view with a styles.icon, and I put the first icon here. And the same thing we do for the second icon. It's gonna be a view with that, and then we close it after the Ionicons. And like this, now we should have like two views for the icons, and inside of them the material community icon, and here Ionicons. Now that we have that, let's go ahead and start styling it. So what components did we add? We added the footer, we added the icon. I think that's the only thing, footer and icon, right? Okay, where do we start from? Let's probably start with the icon, because the icon is a bit easier to display. So for example, what we need is a background color there, which is gonna be a black color, but we need some transparency. So if we add 6 digits here, as we have right now, and then 2 more, the last 2 digits will represent the transparency. So if we do FF, that's gonna be fully visible, and as we can see, it's the same thing. But if we're gonna do 00, that's gonna be fully transparent and we don't see it. But if we do something in the middle, for example 50, that's gonna be like semi-transparent, as we can see there. So that's what we were interested about. Let's make them a bit bigger. So I'm gonna give it a width of 50 and also a height of 50, but instead of giving the height, I can work with aspect ratio of 1, and this will automatically calculate the height to be equal to the width. All right, now we see that the icons are not centered. So to center, we need 2 properties, justify content and align items, similar how we did here in the header. Okay, let's do that here. Now they're in the center. And what else? We need to make them round, right? Let's do border radius, also 50, the same as our width, and just like that, our icons are looking really nice. Now let's go ahead and position them. We need to display them in the same line, not in separate lines. So to do that, we're gonna use flex direction row, and this will display them in the same row like this. The next step is to render them at the bottom of the screen, not on the top. And an easy way to do that is to give margin top auto to this footer container, margin top auto. And by doing that, we are basically saying that footer should have maximum amount of margin on the top, but still visible in the parent container. So as we can see, that pushed him all the way to the bottom. Now to work a bit with the actual how it is displayed and the sizes, I'm gonna start with a background color just to see what we have, what we are working with. So if I do background color red, we see that the footer is simply as wide as our icons. But the idea is to be, the footer should be as wide as our screen. So one way would be to give a width 100%, but a better approach I think is using align self, and we say that it should stretch. And why we're doing this? Basically, align items on the parent component of this footer, this is the footer, parent component of this footer is this image background, and it has the container. So the container has align item center. But actually I don't need that, you know? I can do stretch here and to have both the header and the footer stretched. So in this case, I don't need to give align self stretch here because both of them should be stretched. Does that make sense? I hope so. Now let's work with a bit of spacing. It doesn't have like some inner space, the footer, and as we can see, like our icons touch the border of the screen and also the footer. So let's give some padding to the footer, like 10, padding 10. But as we can see, the icon doesn't start so close to the right side of the screen. It starts a bit in the middle. So for that reason, I'm gonna say padding vertical 10, but padding horizontal will be 30. Padding horizontal 30, like this. And now our flashlight looks a bit better here. Also, for the same reason we gave specific height for our header, we're gonna do the same for our footer in order to simplify our work when we're gonna deal with animations. So height 75, okay, that shouldn't change a lot, but now we know that the height is 75. Okay, now positioning, right? Again, like the camera icon should be to the right. So one way to do that is to tell our Flexbox how should it justify the content. We know that there is a justify content center, and this will put all the items in the center, as we can see here. But what we are interested in is space between. So the Flexbox will put all the space between the items. So one item is on the left, one item is on the right. And with that being said, I think we are done with our footer. Let me just double check if we have everything. We don't need the red color here anymore. And yeah, I think we are good to go with this footer as it is right now. So that means that we are done with the footer. And the last step is with a notification flat list. So let's go ahead and add the notification item component, and for that we need to create a new file in our source components called notification item. So let's go ahead in our project, let's open the files, and let's create first of all the source directory because we don't have it yet, and I like to keep all the source file in the src directory. So let's go ahead and click new folder, src, and here let's go and create another folder for our components. Now in this components folder, I'm gonna create a new file called notification item.js. Alright, so for this notification item.js, I have prepared how we are displaying it. So I'm gonna copy it from our task list. But yeah, like the notification item simply renders the image of the application that the notification is from, and then it renders the title and the subtitle, and then the created ad, and that's it. Like it's a pretty simple component with some styling to make sure that it looks good. Also, as we can see here, the height of our container, we have it defined here as notification height. We're gonna need this notification height later in the video. So with the notifications, we are done. Now let's go ahead and for the next file, this is gonna be the notifications list. Let's copy the code first. And in our components, let's create a new file, notifications list.js. Let's paste the code here. And again, this component is pretty simple. It renders a flat list. The data is imported from the assets data notification, and make sure that the relative path is correct. Because if you didn't create these directories, or if your project structure looks a bit different, then you'll have to update the relative path to the notifications. And the notifications are coming from assets data notifications here, and this is like an array with all the notifications that we have. And for the render item, for every item we are rendering the item that we created in the previous step. Now with all of this created, we can go ahead in our app.js and let's import notifications list from source components notification list. Now let's render this list here where we are supposed to render a notification list. Basically be between the header and the footer. Let's go ahead and render notification list like this. And just by doing that, we have our scrollable list with notifications. Well, everything looks good so far, but one thing that we can improve is whenever I scroll up, the time remains on the top of the screen. However, in iOS, this is different. So whenever we scroll up notifications, the time scrolls up together with the notifications. To accomplish this, flat lists have a property called list header component. So let's send it to this notifications list as list header component. And here it expects a simple component. So what we're gonna render there, we're gonna render our header there. So let's copy everything from here and paste them here. So now the time serves as the list header component, and by doing that, when we scroll, our time scrolls together with our flat list. Just like that. Now it's a much better experience, and it's very similar to how iOS is doing. The last thing here in app.js that we forgot to do before is to adjust the status bar, because at the moment it displays with black color, but if we say white here, oh, it should be light, yes, light. If the style is light, then the battery indicator and all the indicators in the status bar will display with white color. Okay, so that means that we are actually done. Yeah, render it in the application and move a header as a list header component for our notification list. So that means that we are done with the UI part. So, in less than 30 minutes, we have managed to build a beautiful user interface using React Native. If you enjoyed this tutorial, make sure to subscribe to this channel down below not to miss our future videos. And now go out and check this tutorial to learn how to work with dynamic time in React Native and build a functional clock. Or check out this one where we take this application to the next level by implementing animations using React Reanimated 2.